So this is lunchtime yin yoga. And I've got some cushions. I've got a blanket or two. And I have a couple of other props like blocks and things. Now I'm going to use a bolster underneath my chest. And I'm going to put a little blanket down just to make my knees a little more comfortable. And we're going to start in a wide knee child's pose. So wide knee just means the knees are wide enough apart that it's comfortable and easy to be in the pose. I like mine wider than my shoulders, but some people go about shoulder distance apart. Some people choose a little less or a little wide, like mat distance apart. Might be a way to kind of think about it too. If you've got a rectangular yoga mat, that will make sense. Okay, so I just make sure there's a soft surface, and then I like a little pillow underneath my chest. So you could build up some cushions or put a couch cushion underneath you if you like. So we're going to stay with this pose for about 3 minutes. So at first it might be nice to move back and forth a little bit, or decide whether you want to move forward or back. Should your toes touch or be a little separate? Oh, and then let yourself relax. My head turned one direction for this whole half of the pose so far. I'm going to turn it the other direction for the second half, just to even things out. If your head's been in the center, you don't have to worry about that. Your body get really heavy and relaxed for this last minute. If that includes a little wobbly side to side movement, that's okay too. The most important part is that we're really relaxed and we're letting go into the shape. Take one more deep breath here. And let it go with an exhale. We're going to slowly move our way out of this shape. Now, we're going to come into a Sphinx. So what you may want to do before you get to the Sphinx, because that's quite a back bend, is you might want to do some of these little cat shapes with your back. So up and down. And then I'm going to set my props a little bit off to the side here so they won't be in my way. You might want to keep some, like a softer blanket if you're laying on a wood floor. So I'm going to angle myself a little bit on a diagonal. Oh, and stretch myself into the Sphinx. So my legs can go out straight, hopefully, without interfering with any furniture or plants. And my elbows can come underneath me just a little bit forward of the shoulders. Now for the yin version of this shape, we're going to relax the legs. So you might start with kind of a little windshield wipery movement. And then allow the legs to just sort of relax out in the way that makes sense so that they can just soften. We're going to try to keep the glutes relatively soft. So this becomes a little bit compressive for the low back. So if it's overly compressive, you can take your forehead down to your chin, or your chin down to your folded arms. So it's a little bit less back bend. If you want a little bit more, you can prop up onto your hands and do a seal pose instead. So it's technically, in the world of yin, 3 different poses: crocodile, sphinx, and seal. But to me, it's just a spectrum of appropriateness. Which back bend is the right one for you right now? And we're going to stay here for about another 30 seconds. A little tiny bit longer than that, but almost. Before we change it up. Just notice if you've gotten any tension loaded into your glutes. The downside to doing yoga at home is sometimes your pets interfere with you. So you might be getting interfered with from your pets. Mine are just doing little drive-bys from time to time. Oh my goodness. Okay, yogis, so we're going to kind of lean over to one side, and you're going to bring the other leg up into a half a frog. So the higher your knee goes, the further out your foot goes, the more intensity there generally is. So you can experiment with that. I don't like there to be so much intensity that it starts to hurt my hip joint, but I want it to be interesting. And then I usually use a little pillow or a rolled up blanket or the bolster, but you just kind of put that underneath you and let yourself relax onto the ground into this little frog shape, kind of letting that leg slowly drift out and up a little bit as it's willing to go. And you can stay in the Sphinx if that's a better shape, but I like it to come out of that back bend just a little bit because of the movement in the hip here. Now this leg that's behind you, the straight leg, you can bend that knee, kind of float the foot up. And for me, that gives me a little bit more opportunity to work into my quads. You could even hold that foot if it gets close enough to your buttock for that to be an easy reach. I don't leave it there the whole time, but it feels nice to sort of stretch into it and then replace it onto the floor a little longer in the front of that hip. Just relaxing into this for about 30 more seconds, so we're gonna be okay. Okay, yogis, so what we're going to do is we're going to turn our frog into a little shoulder opener. I'm going to keep this pillow handy. I'm also going to keep my bolster ready if I want to use it. Now, you don't have a bolster, don't worry about it. You'll make this work. So you're going to take your arm so this is my frog leg. I'm going to do the opposite arm. You stick it out to the side. Usually I like my palm up. Occasionally palm down feels better. And then I'm going to take my frog leg here and go up and over my back and put that foot on the ground. Okay. Now once I've got that happening, I'm going to rearrange my shoulder so that it feels okay to have it in this position. Prop under my head, and I can just hold that. You can even drop this arm behind your back if you want to. Now if this feels too sharp for any reason and you need to come away from this kind of twisting motion of the lower body, you can put a bolster right there underneath your knee and then let the leg relax here. And that's a fine way to do this also, instead of having the foot resting on the floor. It's a little softer. So this hand can help hold you in the space. You can wrap it behind your back. We're going for a stretch in the front of the shoulder and maybe a little bit down the top of the shoulder or down the arm bone a little, depending on the intensity that is okay for you. I don't mind it feeling a little interesting, but I don't want my fingers to go numb. So if you get numbness or tingling, adjust your arm. That's usually, there's a way that we can pinch a nerve in our shoulder here. So rather than do that, adjust your arm. And you might need a bent elbow, and you might need your palm the other direction to make this work out. And so we'll stay here for a bit. About another minute and a half. So I try to make sure I relax all around my face. And again, just kind of monitor the situation with my fingers, make sure that they're sensitive. I don't lose any sensitivity of my fingers. And that my shoulder feels like it's getting a nice stretch without being aggressive. One of the things I really love about yin yoga is that it really asks us to be very sensitive and very perceptive to sensation. And so we're really paying attention to, like, what's the right amount of sensation for me? And you don't always know. Sometimes you're going to make mistakes. So you're kind of noticing right now, we've got about 45 seconds left here. Do I have a sensation in my shoulder that now feels like my fingers are numb? Should I move my arm? Should I come out a little early? So you want to make the best choice for you. Recognizing that, a little bit of intensity is not necessarily bad. It's just those other sensations, burning sensation, numbness, tingling, sharp pain, we definitely want to avoid those. So we're going to take a nice big breath. Let go with a sigh. And then you're going to take that frog leg back over. And once you get onto your belly, we're going to just rinse out that shoulder that we were just doing. I do little circles. I kind of shake the arm back and forth a little bit. Oh. Now for me, this is pleasant if I do it right. Okay. So I don't feel any tenderness in my shoulder. My whole arm feels light. And really nice. It's kind of, a nice kind of lubricating feeling. So that to me is like, oh, I got that one right. If I come out of it and it feels tender, then I know I want to do something different next time. Okay, so I'm going to come into the frog on the other side. So I'm going to take my opposite leg up, kind of feel out how high my knee should go, how far out should I take the foot, kind of feeling that out. And some of us are going to be a little more rolled onto our side with this pose because we all have a different range of motion in our thigh, hip socket. And so once you find the right spot for you, then you can, use pillows and kind of snuggle in. Oh. And I like to, again, kind of bend this knee, give this leg a little wobble. Just release my quad and hip flexor here. And then I let that leg stretch out and relax again. Again, you could keep that knee bent and reach back and grab that foot if it's close enough to your hand to do it. To pay attention to the breath as well while I'm hanging out with a yoga pose like this. And sometimes I'll do Ujjayi breath because that breath has a little sound to it. You pull the breath through your vocal cords. So you get this little, it's like the sound of a seashell pressed up against your ear. And for me, it happens mostly on the inhale. But that sound is kind of interesting. And you can sort of hear that sound moving through your vocal cords. So we've got about 45 seconds left here. And if you want to practice that, you can. Otherwise, just do a nice, big, smooth, rhythmic breath. Okay, we're going to take a big breath. And then we're going to take this leg up and over, right? So we got to get this arm in place. So either a little bit lower than the shoulder, a little bit higher, somewhere right around the edge of the shoulder. Again, if you liked your palm one direction, do that first. And then roll your leg over. Now, before you go anywhere else, you're going to manipulate this arm. Like for me, it feels better for the arm to go lower on this side. So I'm moving that arm down. I'm even going to bend that elbow a little bit because that's feeling nice. And then I'm going to put this pillow under my head. And I'm going to put this pillow in between my knees so I can extend my top leg out and just relax. Oh, made one more adjustment to my shoulder. And then I'm going to let this hand just hold me. You could wrap that guy behind your back if you want. And again, I'm feeling for anything that feels sharp shooting or numb, and I want to avoid those sensations and instead go for a sense of softness and relaxing into the shoulder joint. A little bit of spiciness is fine as long as it doesn't result in those other sensations. Like sometimes I feel a lot of tension in my shoulders. Yesterday, I hauled these big giant bags of dirt from one end of my front yard to another. I don't have a very big front yard, but it still was, they were heavy. And so I'm feeling a little sore and tired this morning from all of that work, I think. And maybe too much yoga on the same side. So we're about halfway through. Ooh. So we're going to take about 2 more deep breaths here. All right, so with my exhale, I'm going to come out of the side. Oh. And I'm going to take a moment and just allow that shoulder a little bit of movement. Okay, so we're going to eventually wind up in a seated position. And again, if you want to do a little bit of cat-cow or you want to do a little bit of down dog, you can do those things. You want to just windshield wiper your legs back and forth. That's nice too. Oh. It was kind of a long time to spend with a kind of back-bendy shape. So take the time you need to rinse that out, and then you can join me back here. Now we're going to do one pose on either side, and the way you get to pick which kind of external hip rotator stretch you would like to do. So you could do, in the yin world it's called swan, but you might know it better as pigeon, or you have one leg forward and one leg back, and you rest either down or high. You could do the same pose but flip it upside down onto your back. So you've got your legs held into your chest. I'm going to do what's called the square pose, which you could also do the shoelace variety, where you put your knees on top of each other, or your shins on top of each other. Or in my case, I do a shin and then I just move it forward a little bit so the bony part of my ankle doesn't press into this really tender connection point at my knee. Now, once you're adjusted into whichever of those 3 shapes is going to work best for your hips, you can add extra support with little pillows or blankets in various places to take pressure away from places that ought not have pressure, tender joints and that sort of thing. And then we're kind of after some kind of a sensation in the outer hip, under the glute, in the thigh, somewhere in there. You might feel it in your inner thighs because those are reciprocal groups, right? So when we stretch the outer thigh, the inner thigh might activate a little bit, or it might create sensation for us. So we're going to relax as best we can, and we'll hang out with the shape that whichever shape you've chosen. And we'll do about 3 minutes on each side. So this is our first moment. It's just a little yin lunch break here. Coming up on our halfway mark, which is a good time to kind of reevaluate how's the pose going for you. Is it working Should you change it up a little bit? Is there some tension around your neck or your mouth that you can relax a little? It's okay to move out of the pose, give yourself some movement, and then come back into the pose. It's okay to pick a different pose. For that last 30 seconds here. So we're going to take a nice big breath. You're going to hold that breath in, lift up if you're seated. You can exhale and roll to your outer hip and bring your back leg around. We're going to give this whole thing a little bit of a rinse. And you could do like a little back massage if you're laying on your back. If you rolled onto your back. Or if you're seated, you can do these little seated cow shapes, cat shapes. Little washing machine shapes. Take a deep breath and just notice how that went. So if there's numbness or tingling in your legs or in your feet, you might want to add some extra support for the second side, a little softness, a pillow, a blanket. And then we're going to do the opposite side. Once you've kind of made some decisions about how you want to proceed. And we'll let ourselves kind of fold in here for a few minutes. So we're about halfway through here. You're just noticing how things are going, maybe making those little changes for your second half. Maybe it's perfect and you're ready to stay a bit longer. The last minute is always the minute that feels the most interesting to me, because it's the one where the most shift happens. The first minute is sort of my body getting used to the shape and actually relaxing. And then the second minute is often just spiciness. Just kind of a feeling of intensity. And then this last minute is the minute where things start to soften and kind of shift a little bit. Sometimes the spiciness completely disappears. Sometimes it just mellows a little. So we're going to take a nice big breath and float up at the tippy top of that inhale and lean back, and exhale and unpretzel your legs. Oh. And because this is the lunchtime class, this is the point where you get to decide how you're going to end. You might end here with just a little shimmy. You might end with some seated meditation practice before you go on to do lunch and the rest of your day job. Or you might lie down on your mat and do a little shavasana for as long as you like. At this point, though, I'm going to send you off on your merry way. Thank you for being patient with my internet connectivity issues. Yogis, have a great rest of your day. Namaste.